Hello and welcome everyone in another episode of Researcher Celebrity. Today we have Dr. Vikas Singh with us. A brief introduction of Dr. Vikas. Dr. Vikas has done his bachelor's in biotechnology from Mumbai University and pursued masters in a dual degree he did at KIIT Bhubaneswar for the Indian part, and then he also attended ETH Zurich and completed his masters. For his PhD, he attended Humboldt University Berlin in infection biology and then did his postdoctoral training at University of Cambridge. Then also moved back to India as a faculty at Tata Institute for Genetics and Society, and currently is a senior scientist for cell engineering at Cambridge University. With this brief introduction, I would like to welcome Dr. Vikas at the platform. Dr. Vikas, thank you.
Thank you, Raja, for this lovely introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
We always start our conversation with our celebrities that how and when you decided to become a researcher.
To be very honest, I'd never had an aim to go this far. My always belief was to go with the flow and keep learning as things happened. And the farthest that I could recall, like a middle. So I did my schooling from an defense school, the Navy Children's School in Vizag, Visakhapatnam, because my dad was in Indian Navy. And at that time, getting into science was considered to be very prestigious. That was my first goal, to score decent marks in 10th standard at CBSE boards. And after having those, I give thanks to my teachers initially for making things very interesting. And slowly, as and when I got to understand biology a bit, I realized that it's so fascinating to understand the complexity of those various diverse life forms. And even more remarkable was to find out later on during my PhD and postdoc time that this complexity could be broken down into the simplest of the pathways that are very well coordinated. And to further add to this, I think a big credit would also go to my mentors during my PhD and postdoc, who have given me the free hand to explore whatever I could, whichever direction. This helps a lot. And also, I think because the background which we all come from, I has always kept a backup that if this doesn't work, I will at least have something else to dwell on and move things. And this has throughout been my funda. To back it up, very initially, even after school days, during school days itself, I could secure independent fellowships. At the time, they were very minuscule, but it gave you a lot of confidence that, okay, yes, you yourself is now independent. You don't have to depend on money. And this has been throughout after my school. So initially I scored decent marks in 10th. You got fellowship from the Indian Navy. Then during the graduation, where all my classmates were focused on scoring above 80% in the graduation marks, I was exploring different things. So I was the only one among my batch who gave KVPY. I got the fellowship from them for the first 3 years. And then also and this allowed me to go and visit different research institutes, be it the Baba Institute in Mumbai, TIFR. And there I realized, you have various platforms for everybody. It depends how you use it. So I tried using various social media platforms, trying to contact researchers. Initially, it's always a setback. Most of them don't reply. But then as I recollect, it was actually kind of training me to get used to the setbacks that you get during your PhD time or during your postdoc time. But eventually things have worked. So for instance, when I was doing my master's, I wrote to this professor at ETH Zurich that I've read a couple of your papers and I'm very much interested in the things that you do. But at the time I was doing training in Dr. Ullas Koltu's lab in TIFR. And I tried relating, because he was working on sirtuins, certain essential sort of deacetylase enzymes that are important for aging and stuff. But I was interested in pathogens. So I asked this professor, what is the relationship with pathogens and as we age, I'm sure they would be more prone to infections. Do these class of proteins get affected or not affected? I wrote to him repeatedly, and I think maybe he got fed up or something. He just wrote back to me, "Why don't you try it out?" And then I said, "Oh yeah, I definitely would love to, but is there a means I could secure a fellowship to come to ATH and do my remaining part of my masters?" And then he said, "Oh, these are the Swiss Excellence Government Fellowship is there, which could support you for your 1 year funding." And I ended up getting that. So it's all those links that I've always had, that you back up with a fellowship so that you are independent right from the early age. You try out different things which makes you stand out in the crowd, but at the same time go with the flow. So all these events truly now have moved to a direction where I'm slowly venturing out into entrepreneurship. I've seen the very highs of academic life as well. When I was there, during my part in India, I got the Ramalinga Swami Fellowship, which was also again giving me confidence that yes, the things that I've done do make sense. Now, can I give it back to the society in some form or the other?
Absolutely. This is the brilliant start for any researcher, to start having this clear vision from childhood always helps. And as you said, keeping the backups, actually, everyone has their own way, and we'll start with this journey. So you mentioned about writing this emails. Even when you are pursuing a master, not many of the students actually start thinking about it, that can we do something outside than exposure, getting the fellowships? Because once you have your fellowship, then most of the supervisors, faculty advisors, they are so supportive that, okay, yeah, you can go ahead.
Exactly.
So, what you can suggest to our viewers here who are either doing masters or doing their PhDs, and how they should make these connections worldwide, or at least to the with the faculties which are peers in their research group, or the questions they are studying together.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is important. And like I said, be prepared that there will be setbacks. It is fine. I always feel if there are setbacks, that means things are going normal. If you don't get replies from them initially, that means yes, there is a chance things are going normal. So it's better in that way. And the second biggest thing that these days that you have now, I mean, because of the technology development and social media so much into involved these days, our time there were only emails, right? I mean, I know our professors would say there were only letters, but our time was only emails. These days you have, I mean, every research group, they have their own Twitter page.
Mhm.
It's much easier to reach out to them. So it all depends how you use your resources. So at that time, so we were like all master students given a project. We were studying different aspects. So as a part of it, we were reading research articles. And I know everybody does this as a part of the curriculum, reading your research article, making notes, preparing for exams. And during that time, we were seldomly aware that if you, apart from that heading and what's there in the research article, there are researchers involved, their contact details, and be brave enough to just write to them. Oh, I read your article. This is so fascinating. I learned so much. However, I had these questions, and I'm sure researchers would also be happy to receive an email of that kind from an undergraduate or a graduate student rather than from his peers or who would be very critical, right? So a research student would always look from a broad perspective rather than going into the details. So that's one way of reaching out to them. Feel free to write. Even if it doesn't make your straight away writing for an application, just write, I read your research article, this is great. I learned these many things, but this is what is happening in day-to-day life. How could you relate? Or what are your views currently? I'm sure he or she, if not first time, second time, third time, they will revert back. So
Mhm.
that's a starting point. Once you start to develop that interaction, you can then slowly say you are interested. Is there a fellowship, or can I apply something at our institute or from my own country, which we can move forward? So that's the second part. The third part, or the biggest thing, is conferences, societies. Those Royal Society and academic societies. I know this is not that much there in India, but outside you see lot of these biological societies. They are supporting and promoting such work, and I've always been involved with them. Like go out of the lab, forget your research, move out of the lab, get yourself involved in different activities. Have a life outside lab. This is more relevant to PhDs and postdocs who are running after articles, manuscripts. It would just mark an +1 in your CV, just another article. Whereas if you go out of the lab, have your own collaborative circle, it basically helps.
Absolutely.
So,
This is very important, and we do talk about the role of scientific meetings, conferences, either national or international. It it helps you broaden your horizon, what you are thinking, and then what is happening in your field. Obviously, you get the current updates because
yeah,
even the fastest publication nowadays take at least somewhere around 5 to 6 months, if not
easily.
years. So
Yeah,
you come to know that what is the most recent thing which is happening in your field. But when you mentioned about one thing is very important that you mentioned being brave is very important. Writing emails to them, and as a setback, you mentioned that most of them might not get response, but you only knew few of them. One or two is
exactly.
more than enough where you are going to join anyways.
I
So
mean, I mean, think from this sense. Sorry for interrupting. I mean,
yes,
if you're not writing, right, the answer is already no.
yeah,
Why not get a reply no by applying or by just writing?
so true. So
So,
starting from this, so you did your education in India, then moved
yeah.
to Zurich. Then what were the key factors before finalizing Humboldt University for a PhD, which you can share with the viewers so that they can also prepare themselves? Because we get these emails often that I need guidance for, how can I apply for which fellowship? And this led us to starting a new program of mentor and mentee program at Empowering Science Foundation, where we connect these enthusiastic researchers with peers who are well established in the field and can help guide them so that they can navigate their path.
Uh, I would say while I was doing my master's, the next obvious step was to go and get your PhD done. So there were two options for me at the time. Right when I was finishing my master's at Zurich, was to either go back and do a PhD. For that, you have to give the Indian UGC NET exam, or else secure a PhD position while I was there at ETH Zurich, somewhere in Europe, and then go back to India. I did both, like always back up. So I did clear the UGC NET and also the TIFR Mumbai. They have their own PhD exam. Was also called for interview, but interview happens in 3, 4, 5 stages, probably 3 stages. I couldn't do the final part because I also got interview calls from in Europe. So this was my mindset that okay, as soon as I'm finishing my masters, I need to do a PhD. That is the next logical step to do,
Mhm.
right? So while I was applying for my PhD positions, I learned a lot of things of how you apply. How does your motivation letter look like?
Mhm.
How does your cover letter or an email should sound like?
Mhm.
Right. I've also made those classical mistakes which most of the students from our region or our country make. Right. I'm so passionate, desperate to do a PhD. No, you should, do a background study of why you're applying, what motivates you. Do have a backup if things don't work. And when you do your homework about that particular research lab, you will certainly have your own ideas, and it is worth mentioning your own ideas to them, even in your cover letter, because this makes the PI thinking, okay, this person is actually interested. He is just not going to be another technician who will just take up a project from his previous postdocs and make a PhD out of it. He certainly has his own inputs, and I'm sure these days this is what most of the PIs look for, or most of the well-established researchers look for. That's my first point. Second thing, having a PhD or getting into a PhD could be tricky. So do your basic homework on using social media or XYZ platforms to find more about the PI. How well is he? How are his previous students? What are they doing? How well they are? And it's easy to get in touch with most of them because I've heard stories even in Europe. I mean, I'm aware of Indian stories even in Europe where things could not be good for you, or no, things won't be as happening as you would have imagined. The next thing is always keep an lookout for various fellowships. They help, and each country has its own sort of fellowship. So while I was applying, I had this in my mind, like this Humboldt fellowship that happens, which supports PhD students for 3 years. Which was good in a way because you have your own funding for 3 years. You can take your project whichever way, in whichever direction, obviously in consultation with your mentor. So look for a funding. If you don't have a funding, do reach out saying, this is XYZ funding you are targeting. Will the PI be happy to host you initially, even for 2 to 3 months? And you are happy to work in do voluntary work to have some initial results. And if things look better, you both could apply for a fellowship or a funding dependent on the condition. This helps in two ways. First, because the PI would understand, yeah, first of all, it shows your interest. That yes, you are really interested. If he or she is ready to host you, he can see your work while you are there in his lab. So even if your funding or fellowship has not worked after 3-4 months, he would still be, find XYZ ways to keep you. Yeah. And this has happened to some of my friends. That's why I'm saying there are other routes as well. It's just being, again, like I said, be brave, reach out to them in a very nice, polite way.
Absolutely. And I think one point which is very crucial, you mentioned about toning down those emails and cover letters, saying that I'm passionate, desperate to do PhD. These are the points which might work click
Everybody's
for you,
writing.
but most of the time it is like if you are thorough in your homework, like what are the research questions which the group is trying to acknowledge and how you can fit into it, because that is very important that you have to stay in a PhD lab for at least for 3 to 5 years. And one way, the best way to prepare yourself is to know what they are doing instead of landing there and then try to start knowing what they are doing, which is problematic. So speaking of this, of the PhD life, Dr. Vikas, we would like to know your experience during the journey of the PhD. How, because you have seen research in India as well as in Europe.
Yeah.
What were the key differences, and then what will you suggest for students, the aspiring researchers in India who want to come to Europe for their PhD?
There are a number of differences. Yeah, I could say maybe I was lucky enough. I have no idea. I mean, I can say this now and at the end of the day. But the first and foremost difference is once you establish that, healthy relationship with your mentor or your guides, how they call in India, right? I've found that they are more trusting in Europe. They give you that free hand. Like for me, it was a case because I was a sort of a person who would be, this conference, that conference during the week. But my mentor, he knew that, okay, Vikas would complete his experiments whichever way he wants, either on the weekend. So this flexibility was there. Second, the hierarchy is in there. So when I was doing my PhD, I was sitting next to my guide or my mentor. So we had a lot of interactions, very informal. And this is the best time because you could learn a lot.
Yes.
From them. I mean, learn a lot, not only in terms of science, but in terms of how they look at things, how they look at science, their thought process, their thinking. And this is key because I can say a few more lines because my guide, he was so systematic, right? So while plating, I was working next to him and I asked him, how are you so sure that your things are there? He said, oh, tomorrow if I go blind, I know my PBS would be here, my plate stirrer would be here, I can still do my work. And my bench was like a classical PhD researcher, everything on top of digging out books from down, and he was so systematic. So from him, at that point, I learned, okay, to be systematic is important. to be good. You can be a good researcher, but at the same time, you will not be able to be manage things well. And this again could go downside later on in career. So yes, they are more supportive. They give you the free hand to do work. What big differences were apart from that is they are not after publications.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so far, whoever mentors I've had, they have told me a simple thing: try to feed your curiosity, and publications will come.
Yes, that
It
is.
doesn't. It doesn't matter if they are not there ready when you submit your thesis,
Mm-hmm.
but they will come eventually.
Yes.
But if you go after your publications, you won't do good science.
Mm-hmm.
You would try to make up things that are not true,
Mm-hmm.
which would eventually lead to your own downfall, and you won't be happy.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that they did mention. The
This is.
other thing, apart from that, was it's a more relaxed environment. You drive your own research projects by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go to him to taking my 5 suggestions, and what does he think?
Mm-hmm.
Not taking my results and now asking him, what should I do next? What's my next experiment?
Mm-hmm.
And this would happen automatically because he has given me that freedom. So he
Mm-hmm.
has thought in his head that, okay, this person would take care of his work. He's thinking like a PI already,
Mm-hmm.
and he would drive his research forward. Right. Next is tools. For them, tools, it's just a source to answer a question. By
Mm-hmm.
tools, I mean biological tools. They are not the bread and butter of a research lab.
Mm-hmm.
And if there aren't any tools, and if you are ready to put in efforts from XYZ collaborations,
Mm-hmm.
he is also happy to allow you to have that senior authorship, which
Yeah.
happened in my case. So
Mm-hmm.
which all kind of helped in a way moving forward. So they are kind of nurturing us a future scientist in a way, rather than just pumping out another PhD for their own career.
That is so important. No, this is, I
So
think,
this was key.
this is something which has been seen in India, like now changing over the period of time. As you
Yeah,
mentioned, instead of pumping out PhDs, they are training the next generation of researchers,
yeah,
which makes so much of sense. And so this is for all the audience here that organization is the key for every single researcher. And if you get trained during your PhD, that is the best time,
yes,
because after that it always builds it up like a snowball effect. You think you will be relaxed after PhD, but it
yeah,
never does. So as Dr. Vikas mentioned, that he got enough freedom so that he can come up with his own experiments, with his research questions, and then with the help of a mentor, navigate the path through it. It has been seen quite an often of time, as Dr. Vikas also mentioned, that sometimes it is half of the project is already done, and a person leaves for the good, the research lab, and then a newcomer just start from there. You might get
yeah.
publications out of that, but you have to see that what you really want to learn during your PhD, and at the end of the day, how you are going to utilize that information for your future. So, in this meantime, Vikas, what was this balance of mental health in this entire journey of yours, and then how you see that is different from India?
I mean, the experience that just mentioned, right, stated. I think I've heard stories that during your PhD, people are working extremely like day and night. Things are not happening for them. I was more relaxed, easy. I was actually enjoying my PhD rather than I was every day morning looking forward to be there in the lab,
Mm-hmm.
because I know after doing this XYZ of experiments or 2 to 3 hours in the lab, I have that particular course to attend. I have that particular thing to co-host, right? I was involved in, I was chairing a particular ZB. So it was a school for infection biology, right? Where you invite various researchers. So I was chairing that event, which kind of helped you take your mind off. At the same time, the next day when you're coming, you're fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also thinking at the same time, because there's a close by veterinary hospital, how can you help being a microbiologist? So we developed a diagnostic lab where we could screen pathogens of those veterinary animals. So in a way, you are then trying to expand your own, like you said, horizons into wider space.
Mm-hmm.
This, as a result, one it does is you make better contacts, more
Yes.
networking, you have a
Mm-hmm.
life outside the lab.
Mm-hmm.
And what it all does is you can do fresh, good science. And if you do fresh, good science, your mental health is already taken care of. So you're
Nice.
not bored. You get bored because when you're stuck at a problem.
That is very important. Yeah.
So,
And this
so
is
just switch it
something.
off, go out, do something different, come back and revisit the problem.
Yes, and I think we often have these conversations about that how sometimes when you think that you are burnout because this is the real thing, you might the hypothesis is not going the way you want, the experiments are
Yeah,
not going the way you want. But once you have these extracurricular activities and interests outside the lab, either be it hosting, be it participating in some of those things which gives you this break from your research, and then once you are fresh with the fresh mind again, sometimes it is so easy that, as you mentioned, that organization, even if you cannot see, you already know, your hand knows where the things are, and then everything
exactly.
start working. Someone might have just replaced one thing from the another one, and that has been seen in research labs, that somebody changed the label, or have not paid attention enough, and then it
Yeah.
takes weeks or months if got unnoticed. Speaking of this, now after the achievement of after the successful completion of your PhD, the journey from there, like how PhD has trained you where you are today, and we will talk about the entrepreneurial mode after this.
Sure, sure. So,
So,
should I continue?
so how PhD have motivated or trained you where you are now?
I think it played a big part. My story has been with lots of ups and downs. People who know me, yourself also would know this. But I think PhD is putting those unadded values into yourself, which cannot be put down on paper. Because first of all, when you are doing a PhD, you are trying to face lots of issues, tackle lots of difficulties, be it scientific, obviously, yes, most of the time. And even if you're not getting an answer, you are then trying to find an answer through XYZ collaborations. So it's like helping you tackle your problems, be it real life or scientific, right? So it is making you resilient in a way, and this is key these days. And once you're resilient, setbacks are a part and parcel of life. Mental health automatically improves. You become mentally tough.
Mhm.
So PhD was very important for me because I've seen. I mean, I'm. I don't know whether I share it with you or not. So after the Indian experience, when I came back to UK, there was a part in certain months where I was unemployed because I was looking for different jobs, and because I was so confident that yeah, fine, I have a PhD, I was inbuilt and trained. I will certainly find a job. But these 3 months have actually helped me to develop better, to think, move wider. And these are some of the other entrepreneurs that are moving on towards now, are some of the ideas that happened during that time, during meeting with different people, talking with them, not directly with science, but they're more on commercial side of things. Some are doing societal work, some are addressing key issues, but they're not able to do because they're not equipped,
Mhm.
but you can then contribute towards them, which have made collaborations better.
Yes.
Right. So this is what PhD has kind of helped. Also, the transition from PhD to a postdoc. I mean, I never applied for my postdoc to be in Cambridge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Cambridge was never on my first list or second list or fifth list. I
Mm-hmm.
never dreamt of ever coming to Cambridge or University of Cambridge. It just happened. So I was co-hosting a seminar session, and the speaker who was there, he came a bit half an hour early, and he said, "Oh, Vikas, I'm early. What should I do?" I said, "Come on, let's have coffee or tea." And
Mm-hmm.
then I showed him our institute,
Mm-hmm.
and all those posters I explained, which were not even mine at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
then he looked at a poster of my own research, and he asked, "Oh, have you done all this by yourself or developed this method, or is it your mentor who has asked you to do XYZ experiments?" And then I explained what I just did a while ago, that no, it's all driven by me. This is the curious question. I fostered a collaboration with ETH Zurich, where I did my master's. And it's a nice method. And he said, "Oh, are you interested in postdoc?" I was like, "Yeah, I am, but I haven't thought about it. I'm just finishing my PhD. I've not even started writing."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, once you're done, can you contact me?" So I wrote him an email after that, and he said, "This XYZ lab in University of Cambridge is looking for a person who has done microbiology and he wanted to understand how pathogens survive within cells."
Mm-hmm.
And this is how this fellowship and everything worked out. I never applied.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the other benefit that you get when you are out of the lab doing other things, rather than just sitting and doing applications. These things help.
Yeah.
You know,
And
so
this is why we always motivate people that computers can take you so far. Humans can take you where you really want. This human connection, when you have this opportunity to have a face-to-face conversation, and as you mentioned, that there are so many people who got their offers for their postdoc during the scientific meetings when they are having these conversations with their
exactly.
prospective supervisors. Now, moving from postdoc to the entrepreneur mode, we have seen now this is something which over a period of 10 years coming up more and more, where researchers are coming up with the startup ideas and then converting them to unicorns. How your journey started and then where you are.
I mean, the journey started like I just mentioned over a chat with on a coffee, where where some of my friends who are involved, they said, there are ABC tools to diagnostic for a particular type of cancer. However, they're all invasive tools. Why don't we have something which is non-invasive yet very fast? As a result, it could help, decrease the pressure, cost effective, and if need arises, you can then go into invasive methods. And then, but they had no clue where to look, how to look. And because you are a PhD or a postdoc, you can scan through literature in a brief span of time. And then I said, okay, don't worry, let me do some digging. I'm free I'm unemployed at the same time. So I read few articles. I said, okay, we could use this particular approach and can have based on a mask, and we can detect cancer very quickly. Oh, so this is a brilliant idea. Has it been IP'd? I said, no, I only have research articles, has not been IP'd yet. And then this slowly went into that aspect. So this is one of where we are looking into initial cancers part of things. The other is for a school, similar thing, which is done here by Society of Biology, but not at all happening in India, where, I know you or me being a researcher, we are involved during some part of our career or scientific career through some society. What
Mhm.
about the kids in school? I mean, for them, biology is, getting those 80, 85%. Once they
Mhm.
are done, they give this national eligibility exam,
Mhm.
then the next step. But in this entire things, the true juice or core values get lost.
Mhm.
And that can only happen when okay, yes, marks are important, but I see marks are only important for a certain percentage, which allows you to sit in an XYZ eligibility exam.
Mhm.
Don't make it core of your, future.
Yes.
That will only happen once you get out of that marks zone, get involved into real things. There is AI happening these days. A lot of other societal things that are important for school kids to learn.
Mhm.
And I see this is lagging in India
Mhm.
because school students here are actively doing such things that are not there. So I'm trying to bridge those two in a
Mhm.
way for the Indian students, not here, for the Indian students. So this is a collaborative platform where students from here and students from India, say biology related students at a certain class, of a certain class,
Mhm.
they sit down and have to get sort of a meeting or a conference. So we are learning this, but we are learning that. This is happened once. The thing that came out was
Mhm.
they are all learning same kind of subjects,
Mhm.
but the difference is our students are super good in the bookish knowledge.
Mhm.
They lack the other aspect, going out, emailing, talking to people. And here, students, what they do during their summer holidays, during their break, they go out, reach out to different companies, happy to do voluntary work, 2 to 3 months, without getting paid, so that they learn a new technique, they learn how things work in an industry, learn how things work in a lab. They're getting exposure much early.
Yes.
Whereas our students are getting exposure very late once they reach their PhD time, like what we did, right? The
Yeah.
PhD time, postdoc time. And this is where it's making this big gap,
Difference.
where we are good in technical aspect, but
Mm.
societal aspects or the communication skills are completely lacking. This is the second part of the entrepreneurship stuff that I'm is involved in actively.
Great initiative, Dr. Vikas, and we wish you all the luck for those part. But also here, I would like to say all the audience who are listening to this conversation, either you are a student at school or at college, just as Dr. Vikas mentioned about you being field ready, okay? You going through your textbooks, mugging things up, might get you all the marks which you want, but being field ready is not just answering the questions. It's about how analytically you can analyze a problem, and with those, the whatever the tools you have learned, or if not, then you can come up with the idea or a solution that this tool can be used for this. And then you are always open to learn, being more adaptive. This is what makes you feel ready and then helps to put faith in you either by your employer or by your prospective advisor, which see that you have that zeal to work, to learn, and to give it back to the society. Giving back to the society, Dr. Vikas, you already have started your two entrepreneurial ways. And where do you see that if a PhD student or a postdoc have an idea about a startup, how they should navigate the path from there?
I mean, how they should navigate the path, it all depends where you want to have that startup in,
Mm-hmm.
right? It could be virtual, for that means if
Mm-hmm.
it's virtual, you have to think about 4 5 answers to say, put yourself in that place. Tomorrow, if I put this idea to a group of people, what their question be from financial point of view?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you starting? Where the source go funding going to come from?
Mm-hmm.
Is it relevant? Are there any competitors in the market for that particular product? And having competitors is actually a good thing rather than bad,
Yeah.
because if there are competitors in the market, which means there is a need for that product.
Mm-hmm.
So what better improvement are you doing
Mm-hmm.
compared to them? Is your way cost effective? It could be. Is it faster, cheaper, or solving a bigger problem which they may be overlooking? Or is it providing an enhancement to the already existing technology? That's one aspect. And this again, makes you to think you have to come out of your comfort zone. You have to go out and talk and meet different people, not only of your own background, because at times a question asked by a finance person, or from you, or for instance, question asked by a mom or dad
Mm-hmm.
would be more relevant than by a technical person,
Yes.
because or she is seeing that problem that you're addressing from a very wide angle, which you
Mm-hmm.
could have missed. So that
Mm-hmm.
could be a starting point. There are various forums where you can post ideas, right? Take credibility, approach different. If it's in India, there are different funding possibilities available, or take it to a researcher,
Mm-hmm.
mentioning very clearly to him that this is your idea. You are there to help. If he's or she is happy to help, have you in the lab, and you would take this back to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So having an idea is a good thing. Then, what is the next step?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that strength in you with the assigned setbacks that it comes along with to
Yes.
carry it forward?
Very true.
Or
Yeah.
you want to have an idea in the night, by morning you wake up, you start learning things again. So
So.
reading your chapters and scoring marks. So
Mm-hmm.
this is where the critical things uh, lies in. If you have an
Absolutely.
idea, take it to the next level, talk to people. This is where one of the societal entrepreneurship that I was talking about,
Mm-hmm.
it bridges well-known researchers to those people
Mm-hmm.
so that they can mentor them, guide them without taking any credibility.
Nice. This is very important. And I think now we are walking towards the edge of the conversation. I would like to know the word of wisdom from you for the researchers at different ages, either a PhD student, a postdoc, early faculty, how they should navigate.
A word of wisdom, I would say, again, like I started things with five important pillars.
Mm-hmm.
Be passionate,
Mm-hmm.
try to feed your curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
Do your networking. Be
Mm-hmm.
brave when doing networking.
Yeah.
Use whatever resources you have these days: Instagram, Reels, Twitter, whatever. Use it to your benefit, not just for scrolling. You are wasting your time.
True.
Reach out to your mentors.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to ask any question
Mm-hmm.
and continuously learn.
So true. Thank you so much, Dr. Vikas. With this, we'll say to all the audience that if you want to write to Dr. Vikas, you can write it to him. If you want Empowering Science Foundation to put you in touch with our researcher celebrities, we are always there to help you. And stay tuned for other episode of Researcher Celebrity. And we'll say thank you so very much, Dr. Vikas, for sharing the journey and igniting few more brains for the next generation of researchers.
Thank you, Raja. You're doing a wonderful job. I'll just leave with a small picture if that helps. This is a man I met during school.
Oh, nice.
I
Dr.
met in
Eric
Thrive.
Abdul Kalam. Nice.
Thank you, Raja.
Thank you so much. Good luck for your
Wish you all the
entrepreneurial.
best. Yeah,
Yes,
bye.
thank you. Bye.